Delivering a jump scare on film is relatively easy with quick cuts and loud audio spikes. Sustaining relentless psychological panic for 2 unbroken hours inside a live theater is much harder because the audience shares the physical space with the performers. C.T. Drenth's play, Lover's Apocalypse, solves this problem by bypassing the audience's intellect. The production relies on a concept called the somatic load, using continuous sensory inputs to manipulate the nervous system directly. This animation illustrates the play's primary weapon. From the moment the audience sits down, a constant sub-bass frequency hums through the floorboards at exactly 72 beats per minute, subconsciously synchronizing with the average resting human heart rate. Once the director anchors your physiological baseline to the audio of the room, you become physically vulnerable to the narrative. When the play accelerates that rhythm to simulate panic, your heart rate follows, putting your body into distress before your brain registers why. The production establishes a comfortable, well-lit naturalism early on, but that reality fractures during a sudden, synthetic government broadcast. The stage snaps into extreme duality, washing the set in harsh, contrasting red and blue lighting. This introduces the uncanny valley, the unsettling feeling we get when something looks human, but the mechanics are wrong. When the protagonist's neighbor turns around, she pivots entirely on a rigid hip axis with severe mechanical stiffness. The terror is compounded by a visceral injury the play calls the harvest. The right side of the neighbor's head features a massive, dark copper crater, subverting our understanding of human anatomy. As the main characters, Felix and Penelope, realize their environment is contaminated by this unnatural force, that invisible sub-bass pulse vibrating beneath the audience suddenly ramps up to 125 beats per minute. Violating the way a human body naturally moves inside a familiar setting breaks the audience's sense of safety. The horror stems from a mechanical glitch in reality itself. As the characters retreat into their basement to survive, the aesthetic of the play shifts. The bright, high-key lighting collapses into deep, oppressive shadows and a cold, low-key visual design. The director utilizes a spatial anomaly known as lack distortion. The basement set is completely empty and featureless, removing the everyday visual cues people rely on for psychological comfort. We also see placement distortion. Outside the house, a white minivan crashes. From the back, hollowed-out neighbors tumble out of burlap potato sacks, treated like agricultural cargo. Subtracting standard environmental stimuli and treating human bodies as animate fright creates a waking nightmare. The audience is left drowning in an atmosphere of severe isolation. Trapped in the cold and the dark, Felix develops a militaristic need to regain control over his situation. Desperate to reconnect with the outside world, he activates a loud winter generator. The staging builds tension by violently restricting visual information. The theater goes pitch black, and the only light source on stage is the single, harsh beam of Felix's flashlight cutting through the void. This single key lighting begins to flicker erratically. The strobing effect catches the infected approaching the house from a low angle, casting massive, elongated shadows against the walls. This suddenly reveals repetition distortion. The infected move forward in an identical, synchronized lockstep, stripped of human variation. Felix's violent friction against this new world causes the situation to spiral. The deafening roar of his generator draws more infected, and the hidden somatic audio pulse in the theater spikes to 150 beats per minute. Felix's ambition to command an unpredictable, mechanized environment accelerates his psychological deterioration and physically exhausts the audience watching him. This schematic shows how the play spatially traps its characters. A mechanical stage revolve simulates a truck driving past identical autumn trees, creating a dizzying loop. Reaching the street's peak, motionless infected suddenly stand dead center in the road, acting as jarring roadblocks. Engulfed by the deafening 4 hertz hum of the collective hive mind, Felix drops his 12-gauge shotgun. He abandons his ambition, accepting that violence cannot defeat a synchronized mechanical enemy. In a society hardwired for submissive synchronization, traditional human resistance, fighting, running, and action, is a fatal liability. To survive the horde, Felix and Penelope rely on a desperate survival tactic. They must become entirely still and mimic the dead world around them. This graph illustrates their physical desperation. Penelope strikes an organic singing bowl, using its resonant tone to drag their racing heartbeats from 150 beats per minute down to 40, attempting to hide their vitals beneath the 4 Hz frequency of the infected. Visually, the stage lighting fades away, isolating the couple in a single shrinking pool of deep red light before plunging the theater into absolute blackness. The production removes all sensory input. The audience sits in total silence, listening to nothing but the heavy breathing of the actors and a heartbeat fading into the dark. Lovers Apocalypse succeeds because it refuses to treat horror as a passive intellectual exercise. By weaponizing sensory manipulation and syncing the audio to our physiology, the play forces the audience's physical body and their mind to endure the apocalypse together.